Hi Danny, Grace and Jude. This is the principles section of the Glucose Never Lies. These are the principles that are basically used to develop dynamic glucose management and also all the other things on this blog. So the first thing to say is when you get type 1 diabetes, you're taught some solid, good, common sense rules such as 15 grams of fast acting carbs to treat a hypo, give your insulin 15 to 20 minutes before a meal, only correct highs a couple of hours after eating, and all you need to do is count your carbs, apply a ratio, and the glucose level will stay in target. You very quickly realise with type 1 diabetes that although these rules are a good place to start, they certainly will not be perfect for you and will require a lot of adjustment. So that's where you really require to get a continuous glucose monitor, try some of these strategies, see what works, keep what does, things that don't, adapt them and continually adjust them as you go. Sometimes your healthcare professionals will tell you that the things that you're doing are quote-unquote wrong, but the bottom line is if the glucose level stays in target, it's a strategy that works perfectly for you. So always keep close to your chest that the glucose never lies. It will tell you very, very clearly whether a solution or something that you're trying works or not, and it will tell you what you need to do. If you go high, maybe you need more insulin or more exercise. If you go low, you need less insulin or maybe less exercise. Pretty simply, allow the glucose level to be your guide. The second one is you need to use trial and error with continual tinkering. You cannot expect strategies to work first time. So you'll try something. If it doesn't work, next time you might need more insulin. Next time you might need less insulin. And obviously things change on a day-to-day basis depending on how active you are, how hot it is. All of these things over time you will develop your own algorithm if you're willing to try something, review the glucose levels and continually adjust and tinker. And the final principle is when you find out something that works, really try to understand why it works. I'll give you an example from me. Pizza was something that always absolutely crippled me. I would, at pizza, I would go high, I'd go higher, go even higher, and then eventually I'd give loads of correction doses and come back down. I could not get on top of it until eventually I ended up putting 100% extra insulin spread out over sort of 2 to 3 hours and eventually got on top of things. So then once that worked and I realised I needed to double my insulin dose that the carb suggested, I needed to really understand why that is to make sure that number one, what I'm doing is okay, but to really get to understand that. And taking a deep dive allowed me to find out that the real reason is insulin resistance caused by the high fat in the pizza, which actually caused the DAG effect, which the DAG effect in the inside of the cells makes the insulin not work very well, something you'll learn about in the Mealtime insulin guide. Having that curiosity, having that ability to go and deep dive into something will really help you understand why things work and therefore solidify what solutions work for you. So, bringing that all together, always rely on the glucose. The glucose never lies. It does not have any preconceived ideas, any biases. It just tells you what works and what doesn't, so trust it. The second is be willing to do a lot of trial and error and tinkering to get on top of things and find out new strategies. And then finally, when you find something out, find out why it works, get into the mechanisms. And that's why I developed this blog for you, Grace and Jude. So I've done a lot of the hard work for you with dynamic glucose management, meal insulin guide and exercise guides. So if you go through this blog and understand everything, I can promise you'll have a deep understanding of what works and why it works. So you can check out my mentors and then you can get cracking on the foundations.